coffee. I'm like, oh, I think like $1 just went down the drain. So I just went home and I just drank it, and it was okay.
Well, you should have seen the line to get into the corner store. There's normal ways, and it's line against the NRA post office.
Yeah.
You saw it, right? It was out the door, down into the hallway, and around the corner.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It went out the door, down that hall, down that hall, down that hall.
Now you would.
You waited on like an hour and a half line just to get the package.
Oh, but that was from the post office.
Yeah, and another one was in the same one also was the store, so it's horribly inefficient or something like that. But there are two lines, one for the post office, one for the store.
Yeah. Yeah. They like changed this system like 3 times in a week.
I know.
It was like I mean I thought their first system was fine. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, people are like getting ahead like a lot. I mean, like if I want to get my package, I have to schedule it like a week in advance.
Right.
It just makes me think, like, what if I ordered like chocolate or something? Like I have to wait so long. Oh. No, just. But it's like if I order chocolate, it would just be sitting there and maybe melt.
Yeah.
We are probably starting soon, but I have 10 of you, literally. So
Maybe it's because NRH is being COVID tested.
What's NRH?
One of the residence halls.
Oh.
They found like something in their
Wastewater.
wastewater.
Ah.
It's actually pretty useful because it's like you don't test the people, but as soon as you find something like that, then you test the people.
They said they
Yeah.
alerted the faculty. Did they not alert the professors?
Say that again?
They said they alerted the faculty that people might be late in classes. Did they not
Oh,
alert
I haven't checked my email this morning, actually.
Okay.
So no, I'm sure I have an email. Weird quirk. The only thing that doesn't work when I come on campus is my campus email. I can't get on my mail through Outlook, like when I'm hooked up to RIT's Wi-Fi. Anywhere else I can, and I can do other stuff. Very strange stuff.
I was about to say use data, but that's a computer.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
Just whatever you do not use a VPN on campus. I'm sure you know that.
Oh, that would be a terrible idea. Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard, like, if you use a VPN on RIT's Wi-Fi, they will, like, shut down your account. Something like that.
I've kind of always assumed. I think we had a similar. They made it pretty clear. I used to teach at OSU, and it felt like it was the same kind of deal. They're just like, don't fuck with that. Like, we're giving you Wi-Fi. Like, please don't make us worry about why you think you need a
Exactly. They
VPN.
don't want you to forums or whatever. Exactly.
Yeah,
Wait, so I'm working remotely through VPN. Is that bad?
I think that's different.
That's different. If you're using a work VPN, that's different.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're on like RIT's Wi-Fi and disking into the general internet, that's different.
You're right. But if you're working in the tech department and you just like notice that someone has just like a private VPN and they're on your campus, like that's a red flag. You're like, what is this person
Exactly.
doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah.
Piracy.
Yeah. All right. Let me just pull up the stream list here so that I make sure I've got everybody, and then we will get right into it. Bunches of writing to do today. Surprise, surprise. Ryan Miller is here. Russell Harvey is here. Colton Unferth and Kadir all here. Cool. A lot of people online today, yeah. And Kadir, okay. And I'll fill this in as more people show up. One quick note, I'm orienting my thoughts. One quick note for all of us is that, because apparently some people didn't fully understand this, but like if you miss class, there are recordings of these streams that you can watch later. I had someone email me the other day, and he'd been missing a bunch of class, and I was like, hey, like, are you gonna do this? Did you drop the class or what? And he thought that like once he'd missed class and missed the stream that he just like had no more options. And so I had to tell him like, yo, they're being recorded. Like, go check out my YouTube channel. Like, they're all right there. So they're all right there. You can watch them later. And I think the same day rule, I think I'm going to loosen the same day rule a little, because in the past, the rule has been if you miss class, watch the stream the same day and submit the assignment, submit the attendance exercise the same day. But if someone has like a really crazy day, then that just doesn't work, right? So I think we're going to do same week from here on out. So you have a little bit of time, because I'm getting a lot of emails from people like, hey, it's the day after, can I still do it? And like, yeah, I can't say don't watch the stream and don't submit the assignment because you're screwed already. Like, Just seems like it doesn't fully make sense to me. So we're going to loosen up the same day rule, and I'll change the syllabus to reflect this too, but it's going to be the same week rule now too, just for the record. And if anybody needs the link to my YouTube account, go to the announcements page, and there's an announcement called For the Streamers. You can find it there. Okay, let's get to the poem. Today we are doing Creative Histories. And this poem is by Carol Dukes. It was in Best American Poetry 2017 or so. And it's called Hate Mail. And it starts like this. You are a whore. You are an old whore. Everyone hates you. God hates you. He pretty much has had it with all women, but let me tell you, especially you. You like to think you can think faster than the rest of us? Ha! We drive the car in which you are a crash test dummy. So why do you think you can defy our executive committee, which will never cede its floor to you? If a pig flew out of a tree and rose to become a blimp, you would write a poem about it, ignoring the greater good, the hard facts of gravity. You deserve to be flattened by the greater good. Pigs don't fly, yet your arrogance is that of a blimp which has long forgotten its place on Earth. Big arrogance, unmoored from its launch pad, floating free, up with the mangy Canadian honkers, up with the spy satellites and the ruined ozone layer, which is, by the way, caused by your breath. Because you were born to ruin everything, hacking into the inspiration of the normal human ego. You are not Queen Tut, honey. You are not even a peasant barmaid. You are an aristocrat of trash. Landmine of exploding rhinestones, crown of thorns, cabal of screech bats. And I'm telling you this as an old friend who is offering advice for your own good. Change now, or we will have to take measures. If you know what I mean, which you do. And now let's hear one of your fucked up poems. Let's hear you try to refute this truth any way you can. Okay. So I love this poem. I love it because it's funny. Like, I don't open Best American Poetry and expect the first line to be, you are an old whore, right? I love that it starts, it just comes out swinging. But I also like the way that it reminds me that every enemy to creativity can also be a healthy challenge to creativity. And I really like the way the poem admits that this poem has been relentlessly mean, right? And then I like the way that it admits at the end that the poet's going to try anyway. And that even under the weight of all this criticism, the poet's method of taking back the truth is by trying again anyway, and by writing another poem. And so I think that in a week of examining our own histories, it's worth our time to spend some of it thinking about our creative history specifically. And since this is a creative writing class, it's worth our time to examine our relationship to creative writing specifically. And I think we're kind of conveniently positioned in this way. And what I mean by that is, like, at the beginning of a physics class, your physics professor is not going to ask you, so what's your relationship to the study of physics? Like, there's no time for that, right? But in here, this kind of self-aware thinking benefits us. And hopefully it can even become a skill that we apply out and to our other classes and even to our lives. So what we're going to do first is take a sort of inventory of experiences that have had an effect on us with regard to our creativity. So notebooks, if you don't have them out already. Let me check the stream one more time. Okay. We're going to spend 4 minutes first. What I want you to do is list 3 experiences or people that have had a positive effect on you, and specifically have had a positive effect on your creativity. These can be single experiences, like making something and having it valued highly by someone you respect, right? That's a good example. I made this thing, my dad loved it, it felt great, right? Those things work. But they can also be, when I say experiences, like, you can use that kind of broadly. I can also talk about longer experiences. Like for me, senior year of high school, I didn't take very many extracurriculars. Half of my day was a study hall. I loved it. I didn't go home. Instead, I spent half of basically every day in the auditorium playing saxophone because I was obsessed by the saxophone. I thought about like going to saxophone school or Crane for saxophone performance. And so it was really cool to have that time chunked out. And then no one was asking me like where I was, you know what I mean? Like, I just got to play the saxophone like all day. It was fucking great. So that would be my example of like a longer experience. So for 5 minutes, list and describe a little 3 experiences or people that have had a positive effect on you with regard specifically to creativity, and why. Go. Timer, 4 minutes. Two minutes left. About a minute left. All right, about 15 seconds. Okay. So the next step, I imagine, might be kind of self-evident. Next, I want us to list 3 people or experiences which have had a negative effect on our creativity. And this might include, being ridiculed for a thing you made, or a person of authority who sort of stuffed your creative impulses, consciously or unconsciously. And it might even be a period of time in which creative work became difficult, and after which creativity just wasn't the same, because it's never the same, right? So 4 minutes, 3 negative people or experiences regarding creativity. Go. About a minute and a half left. Okay. So now, hopefully, we have a sort of inventory of some of the high and low points in your own generative history, creative history, whatever you want to call it. My next question for you, and we're going to spend about 4 or 5 minutes on this, is as you look at these two lists, can you spot any similarities or trends happening here? Maybe all the negative maybe all the negative experiences had something in common. Maybe all the positive experiences had something in common. Or maybe you notice some kind of larger trend emerging that includes items from both lists. So write about these. What do these experiences, good and bad, have in common? Go. About 30 seconds left. Okay, cool. Now we're going to slightly change tracks for a second. Let's kind of try to round out this perspective. So what I want us to think about for a second, and this one's going to be quick, like 2 minutes. I want us to think about and list some things we've done in our life, activities really, that have fostered our creativity for ourselves. And these can be defined super broadly. Anything which historically you felt both like comfortable and happy, but also challenged at the same time. That's kind of the parameter here, which means that they're not limited to creative activities. So if you don't think you're like a creative person, stick with me because I have a couple examples. So obviously I was super into writing as a kid. Probably not a surprise. I loved sitting in my room alone, writing a bunch, almost always a positive experience for me. I would write some shit down as a poem, and I would be like, this is fantastic. Like, I love that I'm doing this, right? Very, very rewarding experience for little Neil. Music, similar. I had lots of time and space to do it. It was a creative activity. But I think this could also include some activities that you might not initially consider, especially if you're worried about not being creative enough, right? Activities that don't normally get categorized as creative, but actually, I think, fall into the right category. So for me, for example, like sports were this during college, especially during college. Like I kind of sometimes in the best moments, I would see the rugby field as like a system I could engage with creatively. And that there was even ways within that system, it was like a big chessboard with all these pieces moving around, and I was one of the pieces. And like there are even ways to express yourself within that system in certain ways. Your play style, like it reflects you in a way, and it reflects who you are in a way. So I would say sports like totally count. And then I could find and see a lot of myself within the sports that I played. Also, hiking and mountain climbing for me are activities that I love. They're not necessarily creative in and of themselves. I don't come out of a hiking trip with like a poem or whatever, but they're extremely challenging and they're equally fun. And I always come back from those activities feeling sort of filled up, and like I'm more ready to do the normal life stuff that I have to do, right? So I would definitely put hiking and mountain climbing on my list too. So this is my broad definition of activities that foster you creatively. We're gonna do this for 2 minutes. So just throw activities down on the page. Don't start describing them yet. Okay? Go. About 10 seconds left. Okay. So now pick one of these activities off the list and describe it. And what I mean by describe it, I kind of mean more explain it. And like imagine that you're speaking with an ideal listener, someone who's both totally ignorant of the subject you've picked, but also very enthused. And more than like having you explain the rules or the basics of the activity itself, I'm more interested in you explaining your relationship to it and why you love it and why you ended up picking it out of all the possible things you could have picked, right? What features about this activity make it one of your favorites? And finally, can you find any relationship or similarities or correlations between this activity and why you love it and your previous 2 lists of positive and negative experiences? We're going to do this for like 6 minutes. This one's going to be slightly longer. About 2 minutes left. About 30 seconds. Okay. Last question, we're going to talk about it. Simple question, 5 minutes. What do you like and dislike about writing, specifically? I'm tempted to explain a lot more, but I think I'm going to leave it right there. 2 minutes. About 30 seconds left. Okay. So the way that I'm structuring this class, the first few weeks have really been like our way in to the subject matter. You know, we're still like taking our first kind of tentative steps. We're talking about our creative histories and how do we feel about this subject, right? Before we kind of dive into writing about different subjects, we're still writing about writing. We're still kind of, I mean, I hope it's productive, but we're still kind of wringing our hands in a sense. So I really want to hear from you before we get out of here about what was hard about this, what was easy about this, and what was interesting, or if you discovered anything. For me, I noticed that freedom was a huge theme across my positive and negative experiences, like having the freedom to not be criticized, you know, just having like a little bit of space to fuck around before anybody else weighed in on anything. And if somebody else was weighing in too soon, that was when stuff became sort of tricky and hard and stifling and neurotic, right? Okay, so what was hard? What was easy? What was interesting? Talk to me.
For me, it was hard to come up with negatives. A lot of people in my life encouraged me to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being in like an engineering field, you have to be creative because a lot of your classes you're not going to be creative in. It's just math and science. So I had trouble coming up with any negatives, anything that was to do with that.
Did you eventually?
Yeah, eventually.
I kind of had to settle for a lot of mine too. That's an interesting idea. So the idea is that like when you study engineering, like everyone kind of gets that you're going to have some other creative outlet. Interesting. You get it from one place and you get it from another. Thank you. Emily.
I don't necessarily have a difficult time coming up with negatives, but what I found interesting is that all my negatives were kind of centered around one area, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that.
Can you be a little more specific about area? I don't want to dig too much into your entry, but.
No, that's fine. It was all related to my high school band experience.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you have like a bad teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that. Yeah. I have to be careful. If I wanted to, I could have made the whole thing centered around like one ex that I had. Yeah. So I totally understand. Bad teachers can do so much damage to people, for sure. I think a lot about different bad teachers that I had. Michael.
I didn't write about this, but I should have. I had one teacher that was an absolute witch when I was in middle school. I should have written that down. It didn't come to me right away.
Okay, what about it? Talk about your relationship between your creativity and this witch.
Okay. It was more like she did a lot of things her way.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of didn't give me the things I needed because, we're all a little different. But I mean, like, she was just awful. I can't get into it. She was just so bad. In fact, the year I left middle school, she left and all of a sudden happy midway through the year. So I'm assuming something happened where she's gonna get fired. So she left. She'd still get her pension, but I have no idea.
Oh,
But
interesting.
she just wouldn't accept creativity. She wouldn't accept any of that. She wasn't very accepting. She's just kind of awful.
What did she teach?
She was like, she was. I was in middle school, so it was kind of like everything. But she was like my base teacher.
Oh, that's fair. You know what it makes me think of is a story that a friend told me once. So I don't know if anybody here knows about Webster, New York, but I
I know what that
used to work in Webster, New York, at a bookstore called Yesterday's Muse, an antique bookstore. And the guy that owns the place, his name is John. He's a brilliant guy, and studied physics and math, I think, before he started the bookstore. But he was in a physics class in high school, and his teacher threw a bunch of problems up on the board and told them how to solve them. And he was like, "Yo, but I just learned this thing in physics the other day, and I actually think it applies here. Like, I think I can solve this problem a different way, and I'm getting the right answers though." And the teacher was like, "Don't do that though. It's not the time for that, right?" And he was like, "No, but I got the same answer, and I like this. I know this way already. Like, I like this way better. Can I just?" And she was like, "You have to do it my way." And this guy, like, this guy's a genius, right? Like, aces SATs, brilliant man, flipping a desk, cussing out his teacher and getting himself kicked out of school because he was like, "Just validate the fact that I did this in a cool way." Like, Jesus. It's terribly important that when we start to see things differently, that even if those different perspectives don't end up yielding immediate results, that the struggle of trying to see things differently is in itself validated, right? It's cool to try to see things differently, even if you don't immediately fucking cure a disease or whatever. That's not the point. The struggle is the reward in some ways. Okay, we're basically at time. I will see you guys on Monday. I have no current announcements. Keep an eye on the My Courses announcements. I might put up the extra credit assignment this weekend, where I'll explain what that is during that. And if there are no questions, you guys can get out of here.